hello. Thank you very much for coming. And with me, Molly O'Keefe and Matt Grady. And so what we're going to do is we'll introduce ourselves and tell you guys what we do first, just so you know. I mean, I know you have the descriptions and all that, but it'll be much more informative, I think, if we do that. And then yeah, we'll take it from there. So Molly, ladies first.
Hi, I'm Molly O'Keefe. I'm the Senior Director of Artist Programs at the Tribeca Film Institute. So TFI provides grants and workshops for those who are considered traditionally underserved in the filmmaking community. So for primarily women, people of color, the LGBTQIA community, immigrants. And we have a series of funding and workshops for documentary, scripted, and interactive programs throughout the year. And there's more on that, but we'll get into it, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Matt Grady. I have a film distribution company called Factory 25. Release a lot of micro-budget films, mostly narratives, but some docs thrown in. Usually doing around like 6 theatrical a year, and then more digitally. Company's been around for like 8 years now, and just really focused on like low-budget films of quality, and I don't have a lot of the same requirements that other distributors have. I kind of just look for like great films I like. I don't need to have stars, and I don't need to have that. I keep it pretty lean, and I'm able to like get a lot of films out there.
Thank you for that. And and I'm Ania Trzebiatowska. I head acquisitions at a New York-based sales company. It's a world sales company, and we specialize in independent cinema as well. I would say we have a bit of a crossover with what Matt is doing, but I guess we have a bit of a different approach since we do international those films as well. So on that note, if at any point we talk about things that make no sense, as in we mention, I don't know, we use terms that you guys don't understand, just let us know, because we'll be doing, it's like an industry talk, I get that, but on the other hand, not everyone here is probably from the industry, so if something doesn't make sense, shout, please. And on that note, also, we really will try to make this as interesting as possible, if a panel discussion can be interesting to begin with, and we hope that it can. So we try to make it more of a conversation, so if you guys have questions during, please, there's a microphone here. We have to have you come up here because it's being recorded, so unless you stand up there, we won't be able to hear you. But yeah, so it would be great if you want to join in, if you have questions during. So I guess the subject of this panel discussion made us all a little bit worried because it's pretty negative, I guess. But then we'll try to spin it. We'll try to just focus on the positive stuff and just talk about what sells and what gets funding in general, and what maybe we would like to see more of, and what isn't out there that you guys would be interested in seeing. So on that note, I'm just curious what it is that you guys look out for. Because we always talk about how, oh yeah, it's all about the story, which is great, but on the other hand, that's not true. It's not just the story, it's also how you make that story, stand out, and how you get your film financed in the first place. So I'm curious what it is that you guys find interesting right now.
Yeah, so I'll start. So, because my process kind of comes before your process.
Mm-hmm.
So we look for films that are in early development through post. Most of our funding is based on who you are as a filmmaker, and when we say filmmaker, we mean one of the top key positions. So whether it be writer, director, or producer should sort of be part of that underserved community. And so. First and foremost, is your project applicable by who your team is? We look at everyone, so that is obviously the first layer that we uncover, and then the next would be, we have an application process, so you have the opportunity to kind of wow us from the beginning, and I can't tell you how, it's a free application first of all, which is incredibly uncommon for funding. We don't even have a processing fee, and it's amazing when applications come through and are just sort of done half-assed. And that's just, we're taking the time to read it, and we're looking to give you money to move your vision forward. And if you don't have the time to fully put some effort into this application, then we're going to pass on it immediately. The first thing we read is a logline. So you need to really work on that. I know that it's not a tagline, it's a logline. It's supposed to tell us like what we're about to get into and what's going to hook us right away. And then we read your synopsis next as well. So for us, what's exciting is, look, it's really hard to come up with a fully original idea. It always feels like you could compare it to some film or show that has come out beforehand. So what we look for originality is sort of the way in and your perspective and why you as a filmmaker need to be telling this story. And that's sort of the focus of what we look for. We have a luxury where most of our funding, besides one, which falls under Sloan, is we don't have content restrictions, so we're not looking for a certain type of film about a certain type of thing. So that's actually great for us. So we're looking to kind of expand and create many different stories. But again, we are a filmmaker-focused, TFI is filmmaker-focused, so we're really looking on investing in sort of you and this story and, this as like sort of a launching pad to what you're going to do in the future, because we do primarily fund emerging filmmakers. There's a lot more that goes into it, but I'm going to stop talking now.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
So what I look for?
Yeah, I guess because that is true. So Molly is before us in a sense. Molly will be one of the people that will be trying to help you finance the film. And it's also important to say that your funding, it's a really great start, but it's not going to, you won't be able to make the film with just this money that you get from TFI.
Yeah, so that I should say, that is important because it is, our grants range from 10K to 75K, which is not funding a full film at all. We have a very specific question about what our funding is going to do to move your project forward. So the more specific you can be in your application of where you are in your project and how 10K is going to help you get that next, whether it be however big your gap is, we tend to be first money in, which is nice because that's like the hardest money to get. So we'll fund early, but early with the promise of you taking this money and taking sort of the TFI brand on your project and moving forward to finding additional funding. And if that is, if there is a plan in place, if there are funders that you want to be talking to, what is your next step you're going to take this 10K and move forward with? We have a market at our festival. How do you want to use that market to move your project forward? So as much as it is about the story, we get a lot of great stories. We have to then turn to the application and the filmmaker too and see sort of if that is a project that's going to, get made. Otherwise, we're giving 10K to a script that is just going to sit on someone's shelf, and that's not the business we want to be in, really.
And what's also really important is that it's not just about the money with TFI. It's a bit of a stamp of approval. Because, when I see projects that are supported by you guys, I know that, first of all, someone, read and vested it already. And there's an interest from you guys, and you see a lot of stories, like you said. So it's not just about this 10K or 20K that you'll be getting from you guys, but it's also about the fact that there's a lot of exposure that comes with it. So if you are considering submitting to them, you should do it. It's just to do it properly, I guess, in that sense. It's what you talked about, is that don't leave it until, the deadline to write your application, because it will take much longer than you think. And it's just making sure that people get what it is that you're trying to do. Because a lot of the time, when we go to those pitching sessions as well, when filmmakers, there's the director and the producer most of the time, and they're pitching, sometimes it's just the case of who's better at it. You might be the director with this fantastic idea, but you just get shy under pressure, or, you can't really talk in public or something like that. And your producer might be amazing, like the showman or showwoman that will be just really good at conveying what it is you're trying to do. So you won't be doing yourself any favor by, insisting on doing yourself. And same goes, I feel like, for when you're applying to things, is make sure that you present this in a way that will be appealing to other people, and don't assume that they understand what it is you're trying to do, because it doesn't work like that. But so it's definitely, it helps to just elevate, the project even before it's financed, and it helps because finances, like you said, they don't want to be the first ones putting money in, because that's what the risk is. So if they know that TFI is investing in it, something, they'll be just like, oh well, okay, that means that there is an interest, and it also translates. So that's certainly very important to people like us. Then we'll be then looking at it from a sales perspective and trying to assess, how is this going to work in the actual market, and not just in the festival circuit, which is of course very important too. But we'll get to that, I'm sure, at some point. But speaking of sales stuff, and yes, and you did mention that a factory does I mean, you guys do, or you do, because it's factory actually is just maths.
Yeah, it is.
The company is this guy here. So just maybe talk a little bit more about your process and how you select those films.
So yeah, Factory 25 is just me, so I make all the decisions. I don't have anyone to argue with. So if I like a film, I can put it out, even if, if there were two people, there's probably a good chance that
I have a
film
boss.
I like.
It gets ugly.
I mean, especially like the films that I like are usually more, edgy, or like more. I hate like middle of the road 3-act Hollywood structures. Like they don't work with low budgets. Everyone who writes like the 3-act structure and tries to do it for no money and like the Hollywood story, it only works in Hollywood because you have these like big name actors who can pull it off. Everyone's paying attention to the actors. So if you have just other actors, it doesn't always work. So I like more like edgy things. Like right now, I just picked up a edgy. I hate that word, but anyway, I said it. So like I just picked up this great film that was in Toronto called Werewolf, which is like this junkie movie, all shot in close-ups. It like rips your heart out. It's amazing, but I mean, a lot of other distributors wouldn't have touched that film.
Yeah, we passed on it. I love that film, but we passed on it.
So, I mean, I have the benefit of being able to kind of like pick what I want, and then like my process is, a lot of times I do look at festivals to see which films play at festivals. That's where I see a lot of the films, and then I check them out and reach out to the filmmakers, or have conversations with the filmmakers, kind of see where everything's at, and kind of like go from there. I do like theatrical, digital, SVOD, and kind of across the board. And I am doing more international. It's weirdly has been working out that way. A lot of times
in terms of festivals or sales as well?
More sales, more and more, because I've been able to put a body of work together, like American indie. I've been able to sell like catalogs to international, which is something new.
And you also have been picking up older titles every now and then too, right?
Yes, I just picked up a series of older American independent films like Andrew Bajowski, this film Gabby on the Roof in July, Lynn Shelton's first film, and a bunch of others that just trying to get back out into the world that have disappeared that really need to be back out into the world. Trying to put together, I do some foreign films, but mostly American indies.
And how do people submit to you?
Usually I meet them at festivals, or I do get a lot of
you reaching out.
I do get a lot of submissions, or just people emailing me. It's pretty easy to get to. I don't make it hard.
I was just asking if you have a process of some sort, but I guess it's easier when it's just you. I mean, with Visit Films, it's also, most of it is our reach out. We do go to festivals, and we do go to markets and pitching sessions, work in progress, you name it, we're there. And it's not just in the US, but also internationally. Now we have planes. And we do scout for those projects early on. So we try to pick up films at script stage or as work in progress, or when you're trying to finance it already, because we do come on board with MGs, and that's minimum guaranteed, so it's money that we put in the film early on. And we try to develop it sort of with you and develop the marketing strategy, make sure that we know how we're trying to market the film and that you agree with our approach as well, because sometimes and I see that actually quite often, I don't know about you guys, but you see a film and then you see the way it's marketed and you're like, that's a completely different film that you're trying to sell here, and if you only paid attention to what the filmmaker was trying to do, you would kind of, you'll probably revisit that. But so for us it's really important to know that we can sell the film worldwide. It's not just the US, that we know that we can find maybe theatrical for it in France and somewhere else in Scandinavia or wherever we feel like there's interest for the film. And it's also, I mean, we've been noticing that more and more lately, that it is really about the people that we work with. I mean, we're not a massive company, and we don't take on 50 titles a year. It's more about 15 a year. So we really want to make sure that we we like the filmmakers that we work with, that we like the films and what they represent as well. Sometimes it's something that, it's a subject matter that we know is really important, but we don't really think that the world needs yet another film on this subject. At least it doesn't need one from us. So it's making sure that we're the right fit for the film. And a lot of the time, I would be seeing something and I would be totally in love with the film, but I just know that it's not right for us. Or I also know that we might not be able to do a good job on it, and someone else out there might be. So, yeah.
No, same thing with me. I mean, like, social issue films aren't for me. I know this. I mean, I'm more likely to do like the bipolar artist, film, like that makes sense to me, but like all the social issue films, there's so many of them. There's so many people that I know can do a better job than I can with that type of film. So yeah, it just doesn't work for me either. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, social issue films do work for us, but I think that again, in the same idea of it being there being so many out there, it's like, what is your way in this issue? And we try not to be so overt about the subject matter. I think that at the end of the day, it's about the characters and human stories and sort of these overarching themes that people tackle in a really interesting way that are technically social issue films, but they're not hitting you over the head with it is really important to us. And I think that it is. When we're looking at funding too, there's like this delicate balance. We want to know. We look a lot at your team as well. So if you're a more emerging filmmaker and you have a producer on your team that's produced a few things, that's always good. But if that producer has produced a lot of things and you could easily go get the money elsewhere or the support elsewhere, then that sometimes works against you in that way too. So it is kind of this delicate balance that we all sort of discuss internally. Once we get those submission lists, our funding, we fund between 5 and 10 projects sometimes, and we're getting hundreds of applications. So at a certain point, the way that we narrow it down is sort of looking like, do they really need this from us? And are we the people that are the right people to support this? Or could they go elsewhere and get the funding and support somewhere else, is kind of how we make the tough decisions at the very end. So it's kind of similar to you guys, like, are we the right fit for this as well?
Although that can be tricky as well, because sometimes you get, through a friend of a friend, you get someone incredible to exec produce your film, and all of a sudden it looks like you have all the money in the world, which is totally not true.
Yes.
So I think that can be an issue too, that sometimes yes, it is about getting the right people to help you out, but it's more like, what can you do to actually fundraise for that film. But that is very helpful. I mean, that's something that's been happening more and more in terms of filmmakers trying to get a recognizable name, so-called, onto the project, just to support it and make sure that you can raise awareness and talk about it more. And then they might not listen to you because you're a first-time filmmaker, but they will listen to someone, Todd Solondz or someone like that. There will be a really good voice for it, and we would pay attention right away.
Yeah.
And it may seem unfair, but it's just the market is tough and not everything sells right now, so it's not a fair industry in any way. But
that's happening more and more. The executive producer, and I'm getting a ton of stuff by Michael Stipe right now. Like he's putting his name on everything. I don't know what's going on.
Maybe just bored or something. But it's like having Jim Jarmusch on your project.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But then you kind of keep wondering, why is he on this? I mean, what is his actual involvement in the film?
How much will he actually help to fundraise, or is it just his name on something? Like we have, just being in New York, we get a lot of stuff through NYU, and I'm pretty sure that Spike Lee is EPing every NYU project that has come out of NYU. So we take that into consideration too, like which ones is he really invested in, and like sitting down in those meetings and helping them raise the rest of that money. And there's other people like that, like they just are, and believe me, it's a wonderful thing, and they should continue to supporting. I am not taking it away from them, but like they're not in the rooms selling the films, and we spend not only is our job a lot to meet new filmmakers and be doing the same outreach that you guys are doing and coming to festivals and seeing what's out there and who's making what, but we also we try to really meet other financiers and people who could come to our market. So we're also sort of trying to court industry in a way. And so many financiers, I'm like, so what are you looking for? And they're like, well, we're really looking to come on something that's like a little packaged, which basically means you have like a very fancy name attached to it, whether it be producer or cast, and you have like X amount of, like a percentage of financing already in place. It is very... It's not frustrating, it's just a tough business, and that's the way that it is. But the people coming in and financiers coming in to really close those big gaps that you have, they're looking for things that are considered packaged. So as much as we say that we look for films that don't, it doesn't hurt you to have those people attached, but it certainly does. It's very helpful for certain financiers to see that there are sort of fancier names on it, and an EP role is a way to do that.
It's the only way. If you can't have the cast that you want, well, Nicole Kidman won't be coming on to every project that you guys might have out there. But and I'm also wondering, does there's a lot of talk these days about the market changing, Netflix, Amazon, and them buying, and there's the Amazon Festival deal that's fairly new and that everyone was talking about lately, and people were getting really annoyed about, and also people were getting very excited about it.
I could talk about that all day.
Oh yeah, please. I mean, maybe not all day, but yeah, if you could explain what that deal is, because I'm pretty sure that if you actually, how many of you guys are filmmakers? Because that would be interesting to know. Ooh, okay, cool. Yeah, so you might be interested in that. So let's just explain a little bit about it, but also just in general about the market, because we keep saying that, the market is changing. What the hell does that mean anyway?
I don't think anyone really knows, but I do want to know your opinion on the Amazon.
We have very strong opinions about that deal.
So, does anyone know about the Amazon deal? Okay. So the Amazon deal is, any film that was at Sundance, South by Southwest, Tribeca, and now Toronto, depending on what category you're in, they give you, it's actually changed a little bit, but basically a 2-year SVOD deal. In the beginning it was 1 exclusive plus 1, but I think they're going for 2 exclusive now. So they're offering, if your film was in competition at any of those, basically it's a $100,000 advance for 2 years, non-exclusive SVOD. And then non-exclusive means so it's exclusive SVOD, but non-exclusive VOD, which means you can be on other platforms. You can be on Amazon. You can be on all transactional platforms, where you spend the $3.99 to rent a film for a day. So you could do that, but anything subscription-based, you have to stick with Amazon for 2 years. So subscription is Netflix, Hulu, and that type. And so $100,000 for certain categories. So it was $75,000 for in competition documentaries, and then 25 for the others. Yeah.
So most of the films get 25.
Right. Most of the films get 25. So for me, most of my films I pick up from festivals, but now I have to compete with a $25,000 advance for everything, and they're not doing theatrical. So I really hope if any of you filmmakers are taking that 25, that you invest it back in the film and do theatrical, and then try to get it out transactional, just to get your film out there more, because so many people, I'm afraid, are going to take that $25,000 and then just let it up on Amazon, and it'll just disappear, I feel. So with that $25,000 or whatever they're giving, people should spend some of that and promote their film and get their film out there. Yeah.
So let's talk about
there's
that.
more things too.
In terms of our strong opinions about it and why we get upset about it, is that a lot of the films that will take that deal could really do much better than that. We feel that way, at least. And I think that
a lot of them can't.
Yeah, well,
a lot of them.
Maybe not necessarily sometimes financially, because you would probably get a similar kind of money. But it's like what you said. Amazon is buying content. They're not buying specific films. Right. They're buying, a bunch of films from that festival. And to be fair, I don't think they care that much about, what titles they actually end up
They don't
getting.
watch them. They're using all the festivals for their curation. They don't even know what these films are. They're taking these films and they're just putting them out there. They're counting on, the festivals to do their curation for them.
Yeah. Do we take this personally? Yes. Sorry. Question.
As a filmmaker who was offered that, we were in competition at South by Southwest, and Ania, we talked on the phone. I'm Eric Young, Blood is at the Doorstep. But
it's showing tonight, by the way, and it's a great film, so you should check it out.
It's playing tonight at 6 at the Hadaloo. But yeah, we didn't take that because the same reasons you guys are talking about is they never watched my film, and they were being very hardline about the deadline, and there was no flexibility. And I made this film. It's my first film. I didn't really know what I was doing, and then I felt my worry was putting it up on the platform, like you said, and it getting lost, because there's going to be no promotion. It's just going to be me, and I wanted someone else to have, skin in the game with me. And so we passed $75,000, which is hard to swallow. But for me, I wanted longevity of my project, not cash in my pocket. It's a tough decision, and I felt like there was a lot of distributors that wanted to cash in on the $75,000 advance, and I questioned a lot of people's intentions with the film, it was hard. It was a hard decision, and that's the fear, is it's going to get lost in the mix. I can speak from experiences, echoing what you're saying.
But also, like, I don't know, Tribeca or any festival. A lot of those films in competition would have never gotten a $100,000 advance too. They just would not have. So for them, I think it was a smart thing to do. As long as they take that money and put it towards their film to help promote and get it out there.
But I don't think that will happen a lot of the time. I guess, and also I understand that a little bit, because especially when you've worked on it for so long. We're talking years of your life, and then you get 100 grand, and you just want to pay back your debt, and you want to do all those things that you couldn't have done for the last year or so when you were struggling. But so I understand that. But it's true. It's also because of that, because of how hard you worked on that film for all those years. You really want to get it out there. You don't just want to stick it up on the platform and hope that people will find it somehow. And I also understand that theatrical is very difficult right now, and we know in France. In France you have like 50 cinemas playing amazing art house stuff throughout the city, and Paris obviously is different, but still, and America is different. It's a little bit more complicated. There's not as many art house cinemas, and even the ones they are, they're also picking very particular films. And they talk about how they want to show more art house and all that, but then when you offer them those films, they're like, yeah, sorry, no, too small, and the cast is not big enough or whatever else. It's like, well, but you've been claiming how you're interested in those films for years now, and you just don't show enough of those. And also there's all sorts of things happening there, in that sense that, there's different kind of, I guess, relationships that are being developed between distributors and cinemas, and so you can't just play the film wherever you want. It's much more complicated than that. But I really think that more effort should be put into getting those films out there, because even for you guys as well. It's great when
it's important to us too, because we primarily have been giving money to films early, which is important. Don't get me wrong, everyone does need that early, but we are starting to sort of as we sort of change and mold our funding, we're really considering how can we provide opportunity by giving money, by giving either distribution or marketing grants to people, because we're getting all of these great films. We know that they're wonderful, and we do truly believe, and one thing we really talk about is, if this film met the right audience, and by the right audience being the unlikely audience to see this film or to know this filmmaker or to know this story, will that change kind of how people understand each other? And that's really important to us when we get down to what subject matters we're focusing on and what we're funding. But if they're not getting there because of finance reasons, it's our responsibility to start changing the way we do things and really focusing on, how can we help them later in the film process? How can we get a marketing grant to them or a distribution grant to them, and is that of interest to our foundation? So our partners include corporate and foundation partners, and that's who gives us the money to give to filmmakers. So, as we start continuing these relationships, and a lot of them we've had for a long time, so we actually do sort of have the ability to go back to them now and say, listen, this is how it's changing. We really need to help this to reach an audience, and here are some ideas that we have for reaching these audiences. We support some international films, and they're not able to show them in their own city theatrically, and that's a real shame that they make it and they're not able to get to those audiences. So we are aware of it and really trying to remodel our program, because we're not a distributor, but we do know that it's important for you to think of your film when it's finished. Just because it's edited and or in the can, it's not done. There's still so much more to be done. So that also brings another point, is as a filmmaker, when you're budgeting your film, you have to think about those things early on, that you have to think of those marketing campaigns from day one and early on, and how you're going to get your film to the audience that you want it to reach, because that is also your responsibility to consider that does cost money.
It does. I guess, well, that's kind of the point that I was also making earlier in terms of thinking ahead. And for us, why it's really important to be on the project early is because it takes time. I mean, it takes time and a lot of effort. And if we can tell you about all those little things that will be annoying and very costly later on if you leave them until the very end, but you can deal with them right now while making the movie or even before you start making it, then, our lives will be much easier and it'll be definitely cheaper for you. And there's lots of, even when you do secure your sales agent or you find someone that you want to work with, it's still a long way ahead that, you have to be aware of all those things that will be coming up sooner or later. But I'm also curious what you mentioned about financiers and the people that help you guys out. In terms of that network, is it something do they have a say in terms of what you choose to
No, but we have, so I had mentioned it just briefly, but during our festival, we host the TFA Network Market. So everyone that we've given funding to, we bring to the festival, and then at the same time, the first 3 days of the festival, we host a market, and it essentially feels like speed dating meetings of like 20 minutes each for you to meet other financiers, other distributors, and other producers that may come on the project. We also have, a lot of inclusion programs for like places like NBC and places out in LA to sort of invest in you as a filmmaker too. It might not even be about your project, but you're taking these one-on-one meetings and sort of we're courting people to say, hey, take a break from watching all the films at Tribeca and come and meet our filmmakers so that you can kind of invest in their next project. So by courting them, it's to come to that market and meet our filmmakers. Sometimes I feel like we are acting like managers for our filmmakers early on, but that's sort of our responsibility too. It's not just a fiscal responsibility we have towards them, but it's also to sort of help them connect to people to continue working and, have a sustainable life as a filmmaker. So that's sort of the people that we're courting and really helping in every way that we can to get this film made.
It's really great to have that kind of support, especially early on, because, you have this idea and you're really into it and you think there's a very important story to be told. But then unless someone else from outside your circle, not your mom, not your friends, someone else believes that it's a pretty great idea and yes, this is the story that people should know about, then it's just very difficult to get that sense of, yes, I should do this and I should stick with it because it's going to get hard very soon, and it will. And also I think that's a good time to mention the fact that you shouldn't take any rejection personally. And I mean, festival, sales agents, anyone, even people, audiences. I know it's really difficult because you've worked on it so hard and it's your film, but it's all opinions, when you think about it. Oh, I don't know, from my point of view, I watch something and I have to think about how it's going to do, sales-wise, and what's going to happen to it, in my opinion, and how other films that we had that were similar to this one did abroad in terms of sales. And I have to think about what I'm going to disappoint you at some point. Is it going to be difficult, and is it going to be? It's a conversation in a sense. When I know that a filmmaker has a very, very high sort of expectations in terms of how well the film is going to do, I'm kind of like, unless they listen to us and we can explain that it might be a little bit different or it might just be a little bit more challenging than they expect. And even when you take your film to 50 festivals and it does really well and you're like, oh yeah, but audiences loved it. I'm like, yeah, that's fantastic and I'm very happy for you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it will sell in Germany or somewhere like that and that people will care about this film somewhere else, or people outside of the festival sort of environment. It's a very nice environment. It's also very important for the kinds of films that we look after. It's crucial. Those are the kind of audiences that we want to go to the cinema later on, but the trouble is that doesn't guarantee anything. So what I'm saying is that when we say no to someone, and we've been avoiding this question for the last, 40 minutes or something, why we didn't take your film or we didn't choose to finance it. I guess there's a lot of aspects that we will have to consider, and for us, definitely, the international side of things is very important, but it's also, this is a story that we think is told from a different perspective, and we talked about this a little bit before, but, we want cast. As a sales agent, of course we want big names, but on the other hand, if it's a film that's just truly different and personal and touching, and there are films playing this festival that we represent, like Davian. It's one of those films that I just I watched and I fell in love with it right away. And no, it's not an easy film. This is not a group of people that you see on screen that that you might see every day, and therefore people will be reluctant sometimes to to pay attention. But this is exactly why we want to work with this film, and because we believe that the director is very talented and that he'll be doing amazing things. And it's about supporting those voices that we think should be heard. But we really have to make sure that we have enough to work with in that sense to help this film get out there and to make sure that the audiences will want to see it. And yes, it helped that the film was at Sundance and then Berlin, and it was a fantastic, success. But it's a process. And Aman is there, the director, and he can vouch to that. That it takes forever and it's hard work. And even when you do get that stamp of approval from Sundance or someone else, that doesn't, that in a way it means everything and means nothing. And so it's a constant process of sort of making sure that you don't lose faith in what you just did, because it took you forever to make it, and you did something right, but now you have to get other people to believe in that. Sorry, that's me done.
Yeah.
Someone should say something. Okay, we have time for questions, do we?
Well, yeah, and I have one question myself, actually, and we do have some more time still, but there's a lot of independent filmmakers that are here. How much would you encourage them to think about their distribution plan before ever starting shooting? So are you telling them to focus on make the film and we'll deal with distribution later, or start thinking about distribution, have a plan in place, have conversations with sales agents, things like that before ever starting shooting? And can you talk about that a little bit?
Do you want to take that one? I can. No?
I think it depends on the filmmaker. I think some filmmakers just need to focus on creating the project and doing that. And if they start thinking about distribution, their head's gonna explode and they're gonna go a little crazy. But I do think, in the most part, you should be a little bit about distribution, but also just making the best film that you can. I mean, I think that's the most important. Yeah.
I mean, having I guess there's a difference between having a strategy in place and having a plan and just knowing who your audience is.
That's important.
It's really very simple. Sometimes I ask a filmmaker when they pitch a project to me, but who are you making this for, other than yourself and your family? Obviously, they will definitely watch it. But it's knowing is it teenage girls, or is it if it's a coming of age story, and you think, well, this is so different. I said, but is it really that different? We've seen 15,000 coming of age stories. So why do you think this one really should be told? And a lot of the time it should be. It's just a case of knowing why and making sure that the audiences are there and that you can get them to see your film. So when filmmakers tell me about, but there's this, outreach program that will be perfect for this, and they know about the project, they will support me, they will do this, and that is already great, and that is a lot of work that then you don't have to do yourself, which is very helpful to us. So in that sense, knowing about those angles that your film might be, that is great. But I don't really think the filmmakers should know exactly, how would you guys know this? I mean, let's face it, doing your research is fantastic, but I think doing very basic research in terms of what not to do, or why would you go take your film to a company that doesn't even do documentaries or something like that? We get filmmakers that will offer us their short films, and there's no mention of short films on our website. So that clearly means they didn't even look at it. They have no idea what kind of films we do. But we also have filmmakers that come to us and they say, oh yeah, we loved your film and this, and they know the catalog, which is nice. It's also nice to know that you are watching those films. So I guess basic research instead of having a full-blown marketing strategy for your film. But sure, if you have people on board that know about this stuff and they'll be willing to help you for free, hopefully, then great. Then use that as much as you can, and you will.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. Especially early on, if it's your first film, really no one's going to care about it as much as you. So at best case scenarios, you get a producer involved who understands your vision, understands what you're doing, and is there to sort of help tackle these things early on. We have a lot of directors that are sort of doing it on their own at first, and you almost have to pull the producing parts out of them. And I think one of those would be sort of the producer really starting to think about who the audience is, helping them with that, and helping them sort of start thinking about these plans early on. So it is really important to find a good team and a good person who understands what you're doing to be part of your project as well.
Okay. Oh, Miriam has a question. Hello.
Ania, you talked about how the personality of the filmmaker was really important, getting to involve. What are the qualities in a filmmaker that make you excited to work with someone, and what are the qualities in a filmmaker that make you really hesitant and want to avoid?
Other than talent, obviously. Honesty, I guess. I don't like being lied to. And you'll be surprised how often that happens. You know, people tell us, for example, that, oh, we submitted to this festival and they were really excited about it or whatever else. And then I happen to know these guys, so I just call them and I ask, so have you seen this? And it's like, nope, no idea what it is. But, you know, and it's just...
That happens a lot.
I don't know why, though, because it's such
Everyone's
a small...
friends with Miranda July, and they
yeah.
then everyone wants, like, she's going to support my film. You don't even know her. Yeah, it happens all the time.
But the thing is, it doesn't help you, is what I'm trying to say. It's a very small industry, so be honest. I mean, I'd rather have a filmmaker tell me, okay, this is my first film, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'll be like, cool. I mean, I get it. It's very complicated. It's not that much fun at the beginning either. So just surround yourself with people that you trust and you like and you want to work with. And your life is already going to be easier and this project is going to be much more fun. But yeah, so other than honest people and talented people, I think just knowing that you're passionate about what you're trying to do is very important to us, because we will be spending a lot of time with you one way or another. And also knowing that the production team, you know, the people behind it is not just the personality of the director, but it's also the personality of the people that are working with you. So if we know we get on with them, and if we know that we understand what they're trying to do, and it's about managing expectations as well. If you guys listen to if you ask for feedback, you should also be willing to listen to what we have to say. And otherwise, just don't ask, because there's no point. You know, we get films submitted to us sometimes, and people ask me for feedback, and then I take time to watch the film twice or something, and give detailed notes if it's a friend or something, and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, no, but this is like, I didn't want to hear that," you know, because it's something that they just because we took a week to shoot something, and it has to stay in the film. It's like, but it doesn't work. So why would you want to keep it in there just because it took you so long and it was so expensive to shoot it? Just you have to be a little bit more flexible. So yeah, I guess just that will be the
Just don't be a jerk.
That's another thing. Don't be a jerk. That's true.
I was gonna say something else, but yeah, just don't be a jerk. Yeah.
We don't like working with jerks, and we try to be nice. We really do, and it's awful. I mean, I would say 60% of my job is rejecting people, which is just so terrible to do. I mean, I hate that. I hate having to say to people, I'm really sorry. And also saying that, I really liked your film, but it's the worst. It really is the worst. So think about it also that, from that perspective, that it's not that much fun for us, but we do pay attention. We try to really consider, your film for what it is, and we try to give you the kind of attention that you deserve. And especially we do respect the fact that it took you a while to make it, and you worked on something, it's a personal thing, and you worked with a lot of people to make it happen. So I guess just don't think of us as so soulless business people, because we're not like that. At least, well, we not. I don't know about others, but
no, it is true. I really do read pretty much. I read every application that comes in, and for the most part, if I met you at a festival and you applied, and you start talking about your film, I'm going to remember it. And it's amazing how many people are shocked by that. And I was like, yeah, we're not like some machine. There's 4 people reviewing our hundreds of applications, and it is horrible to us. Like, when I tell you, everyone makes fun of me because every year, our special pass list of people we really want to give feedback for and have them come back is so much longer than just blank passes, because we just keep on adding to it, because there's so many great projects out there. But at the end of the day, we can choose between 5 and 10 for most of our funding, and sometimes it just isn't a fit, and it's really hard. But taking that rejection is so much of the process, and you never get used to it, but you just got to get better at handling it. I don't think anyone's ever going to get used to it. That's that's not something we're asking. But also, back to taking notes and feedback. That's so important. I know, look, as independent filmmakers, you have that luxury, right? It's I want to make my film and I'm going to do it the way that I want to. But, if you're not hearing what people are saying, even if what people are saying isn't a problem like, even if you don't like the way they're solving the problem, understand that, like, it's a problem. Most recently, I heard the best explanation of it, but it's just like, if 3 people tell you you're drunk at a party, go home. So if 3 people are telling you there's something wrong with your project and your script, maybe they don't have the best solve for it, and you as the writer, director, or creative person is the person who's supposed to solve that. But, like, hear the problem, and, you know, again, unless you want to make this film for your parents and your grandmother and you to watch in your basement, like, you have to understand that we're people with opinions, but we're also your audience. So it's you have to think of it in that way and just be more amenable to those kind of notes.
But that kind of goes back to the research thing, because it's also who you choose as your guinea pigs in a sense, and who you'll be asking for those opinions and this feedback. Don't ask everyone, obviously. I mean, select the people that you trust, the people that you think have a good taste, people that could potentially be your audience, because otherwise, I mean, you're definitely going to go nuts if you try to listen to everyone and their feedback, because people have opinions, and a lot of those. So it's knowing who you're going to ask for help in that sense. But when you do, just try to listen, I guess, and maybe take it on board and see what happens. Sometimes it's incredible also what happens, how much it helps. And I watch different cuts of different films all the time, and it's amazing. It really is amazing what you can do in editing, and how you can move things around, and how it completely changes the way that people will then respond to it. So it's definitely worth revisiting, at least. I see questions. Please. We just keep rambling on otherwise. So yes.
I'm probably in the minority with this, but Ania and Matt, I'm actually interested in the business model for small distribution companies, because obviously here in Memphis, the main theater chain is Malco, which makes its money through big studio films, and we'll occasionally, and also through Indie Memphis, through like micro cinemas, we'll showcase the independent films that we, the people in this festival love to watch. But what are some theaters or just like a little bit elaborate on the business model for small distribution companies.
That's more for you, I think, because you distribute. We don't really distribute that much.
Were you talking about more like theaters, theatrical, or like in Memphis? So, yeah, Memphis is great for the festival. I mean, it's been hard for me to break in with a lot of my films. I mean, a lot of cities still have micro cinemas. I mean, they come and they go, but a lot of cities are trying to support indie films. There was, a great one in Portland just shut down, Seattle, and one in LA. But hopefully, other ones will take their place. It's kind of been going that way. And in New York right now, there are more cinemas than ever playing independent films. I hope that continues. That they continue to play independent films, but. It's hard for a lot of cities to support the indie cinema, indie films, because a lot of times 10 people show up. But hopefully through the festival and other ways, more people will get into that, and hopefully theaters will support that.
Okay. Okay. Do we have one more? Yes.
Hi. Thank you. Ania, this question is primarily for you. I noticed from the Gina Davis Institute, they pulled data from 2015 and 2016, and 2 figures that seem very at odds with one another. I'd like your sales perspective on it. The first figure is 16% of top grossing films in that timeline had female leads. The second statistic is 17%. Those films on average made 17% more revenue than all the others. So from a sales perspective, how do you factor in gender and the dynamic that is stuck in Hollywood of male directors, but rapidly changing in terms of real sales volume in how you judge a film?
I mean, I'm really biased. I prefer female filmmakers. No, I'm kidding. But it's true. We work with a lot of female filmmakers, and I don't really think that, that it's, in a way, it's not a factor in how we choose the film, because it's more about the stories. It's more about what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it differently. But then I feel like the problem lies a little bit kind of like before it gets to us. It's more about funding. It's more about who gets access to this money. And yes, there's, Sundance Institute, and there's you guys, and there's people that are trying to support minorities in those film communities, but what we get, is what's already been made, obviously. And yes, we can support it, and we do. And I would say that last year we worked with more female filmmakers than male filmmakers in terms of the films that we picked up. And that goes for not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well. And I think that's great, and I think that will be happening more and more. But those filmmakers still need support. But that goes just. I'm always saying that I'm just sick and tired of watching white hipsters doing things in Brooklyn, because it's really, who cares, basically. So we're trying to find films that aren't like that. But then I hear from a distributor in Greece, but African Americans on screen, people in Greece don't really care. Or it's like, well, how would you know if you haven't put out a single film with non-white people in it? You have no idea. So why not just try? It's a great film, it's a great story, and people might actually identify with it, black, white, or otherwise. So I guess it is more about funding, is what I'm trying to say, and who gets access to films. We don't discriminate in that sense. We really try to find the stories that we feel like will resonate with audiences outside of the US as well as here. And a lot of the time, it is just forcing people to pay attention more than anything else. Yes, question. Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
I was interested in what Molly said about remembering stories and lines when you look at films that are submitted. So I'm going to be one of those. I'm going to be one of those submissions one day. So I'm going to tell you that I'm writing a story about community organizing on the south side of Chicago, which is what I did for 25 years with young people. And so the story is actually a documentary film that's taken from some archival footage that I have over those 25 years. But what I hope to do is basically have it demonstrate to young people all over the country about options that are available to them through service learning and community organizing that allow them to save themselves. And so I'm hoping you'll remember my story, but also I wanted to get an idea of whether or not stories about young people is something that Tribeca is particularly interested in terms of, there being a market for that, and Tribeca being open to those kinds of documentary stories.
Yeah, absolutely. There's two funding opportunities, and one that's actually due on Monday, but I can give you an extension because that's what it.
And I can make Monday. Yeah. I can make Monday happen. Okay,
great.
Go.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, so one is take the extension. One thing that you'll need to, it's called Tribeca All Access. It's our longest running program, and that's for grants of $10K. And those, again, that's more based on you as a filmmaker. The second one, which we usually films that we feel move into that category, is called the Gucci Tribeca Documentary Fund, and that one opens in December, and that's specifically for social issue-driven docs. And those that, that one is also open internationally, but domestic films, domestic and internationally. And the other, we choose 80% of those films are films from female filmmakers about female stories. So depending on who you're following in this doc, I think that it could be, if there are women female characters in that doc, that would be specific for the Gucci Tribeca Documentary Fund. So that one might be a better fit, and those are for grants up to $25K. The requirement for docs, though, is we ask for at least 7 minutes of footage to review beforehand. So you will have to put together a little bit of a scene select, and not a sizzle reel, an actual scene from the film, to sort of just get a sense of what your access is for your characters. So I always recommend choosing one or two characters that you've planned to follow and sort of doing, or if, like you said with archive, if you're sort of approaching archive in a really interesting way that we should know about visually, that would be something good to include as well, just trying to get your film to really stand out. But those are two funding opportunities, and I'm going to remember your story. Woo! I thought you were going to quiz me on something you already applied, and I got very nervous.
Do you remember? Okay, I think we have 4 more minutes. Are we so on time? Oh no, we know this guy.
So I'm really interested in theatrical. I think there's still a viable way for independent filmmakers to make money theatrically, and I wonder if there's any kind of like you relish in the fact that box office revenues are declining, and that opens up the possibility for more independent films going into those theaters, and how you would book. Or if you could book a movie in multiple theaters, over 20, over 50, over 100, maybe 500 theaters, what do you have to do to do that? You have to have a relationship with every personal theater or with the franchise? And are you able to do that? Do you have the resources to do that? Because I do think there is a way for independent filmmakers still to make money theatrically, and I think it's opening up because people are rejecting a lot of the stories that Hollywood has to offer. So I'm just curious if you wanted to speak to that in the next 3 minutes. Thank you.
It's difficult, and it's slightly depressing when you do look at numbers. Even when there are those success stories that you see that people are talking about a film and it's everywhere, and then you look at the numbers and it really didn't make that much money. Or you have to remember about the money they already spent on marketing, so it's not necessarily profit in the end. But it looks like there's no real kind of way to make sure it happens in a way. Like, I'm always surprised what theaters eventually go with. When I look at what is it that they're programming, sometimes I was convinced that there's a film that they would love, and then they watch it like, yeah, no, sorry, not for us. And we have those relationships. We're talking already about people that we have access to, and I know they will watch the film. But it's a lot of it is also timing. They have schedules that go ahead like 6 months or something, and they might not have space for it, and you feel like it should be released soon because of the subject matter or something like that. And sometimes you want to hold off for a particular theater because it has this, this audience that you need, and it's very important to us that we play. I don't know. There's a cinema called Quad in New York. That's amazing in terms of what they program right now. Or there's IFC Center that has its own audience. But for us, like Film Forum would be, a dream because they're so pretentious in the best possible way. But it's the kind of audience that we want. So I think it's a mix of relationships. Also, how much money you can spend on marketing. That's so important.
Right. And then some of the theaters, have relationships with the bigger studios that they have to show their films. So that makes it hard as well. But in New York, there are more and more opportunities. With the Quad, with Metrograph.
But that still doesn't translate into what you're talking about,
it's not
which is
talking money. New York is important to get the other cities on board. If you don't have New York, it's hard to get the other cities on board.
But there are those really incredible stories of films like Columbus. That's one of our titles that did incredibly well. Thank you for that. I love that film too. It did really, really well in the US, and they were actually self-distributing, which is something that we always tell people not to do. They did get a grant from Sundance Institute to do that, so that was very helpful, and that was already a really good start. But they managed to get important media on board, and the film did really well. I think it's made almost $1 million now in theatrical, which is fantastic. It's been playing for about a month and a bit now. So I think there's different ways to do this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that you will make money off of it, which is depressing, I know. But if you want your film to be shown and seen, that theatrical is the best way to do this, especially in bigger US cities, I think. So yeah. Is that it? We don't have any more time, do we?
Right. No, unfortunately not. Great. So thank you guys so much
for
coming today. Let's give them a big hand.
Sorry, wait, can I just do one quick plug? I did mention that our funds close on Monday, so if anyone else feels that they are applicable for one of our funding, come find me after, because you have until Monday, but I might give you an extension, maybe.
That's really cool. You should take the extension.
This was an awesome panel. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you guys. This is really awesome.